own method and your inbuilt methodology to provide these opportunities. And creativity, that's why in many countries they don't have creativity, because you don't give the opportunity. You have already taught the child to think in a very structured way.
Exactly.
And the child who thinks differently is punished. Can you imagine how if Siddhartha had followed the same way, of thinking, he would never have been the Buddha. But he thought out of the box. He went, he investigated, he inquired, he found out all these things.
You mean education should take some constructivist approach?
Yeah, constructive, and also opportunity, provide opportunities for creative thinking, lateral thinking, for children to talk, to express themselves. In fact, in America, in America and in England, many of the schools have already adopted, they have downplayed classwork, daily work is given certain percentage. Group work is given percentage. If I know that my grades will be down, if my whole group is down, then I'll work very closely with my group, and my group marks will also help me to have a higher mark. The process in developing this creates that harmony, that collectivity, that connectivity, and all those other things which cannot be taught. The other thing which we fail to understand is morals, ethics cannot be taught. It has to be cultured. And we teach morals, we teach ethics, we have exams for morals and ethics. That is not what the Buddha taught. You cannot teach these things. You have to practice, kriyatma, you have to sikkapada, you have to train, you have to keep on doing it until it becomes you. It becomes you, second nature to you. So all these things are absent, absolutely absent in the education system. I mean, I'm not saying Sri Lanka, but universally this is a problem. But if we can introduce, and I think this will be a big gift by the Buddhist world to the whole, world.
Yes.
If we can introduce these concepts and these ideas, the Buddha, after all, I have great confidence, because he is a peerless, unparalleled, unsurpassed teacher, and definitely these are the methodologies he used, and he was highly successful. There were no Buddhists during his time. He went, to all towns, villages, teaching those who had different ideas, completely opposite ideas. He was able to change them because of the methods he used. Not just the teaching, but the methods as well.
Wonderful methods, I suppose.
Yes, and
because I remember for this lady, Queen Kema, who was really proud of her beauty.
Yes.
A wonderful method was applied.
Yes. Carry on.
A wonderful method was applied, because the Buddha made her see a picture of a lady, and how the lady became old and ultimately died, and thereby explaining or just make her understand how that the body would decay. So I think that's what the Buddha applied, and I think, sir, now these days we are talking about constructivism, problem-based learning, activity-based learning. We talk about them a lot, and most of them are from the Western writers, and we sort of admire them. Okay, this is the way. But I suppose we have forgotten what the Buddha taught us.
You're very right. You're very right. They are jargons. Modern jargons,
Exactly.
You have, not only that, you have people like Stephen Covey, Zig Ziglar, Napoleon Hill, Anthony Robbins, they come to Sri Lanka, they come to Malaysia, they come to Singapore, they have a big hall, and you pay thousands and thousands of dollars just to go and listen to them. And what does Napoleon Hill say? He says, if your mind visualizes or your mind thinks, then you will become. The Buddha has taught this 2,500 years ago. The mind is the forerunner of all your thoughts, speech and actions. Yes, the first two verses of the Dhammapada is all on the mind. And that alone is enough for us to show that, this is something which is very familiar to us, and we have been having it for more than 2,500 years ago. You're very right that these are all new jargons being used. The Buddha had, you mentioned Queen Kema, her vanity, he used what is called visualization techniques. And today modern trainers, modern teachers are using this, including in sports. If you watch a tennis game, for example, or even a golf game, you'll find that cricket, for example, you'll find them visualizing their stroke. Exactly. That's the visualization technique. You'll find them psyching themselves up, you know. You can see the body language, the body action, all these things the Buddha had already taught. He used the visualization technique. And even in his own aspiration to attain Buddhahood, he used to recall the old man, the sick man, and the corpse, the dead corpse. That psyched him. These are visualization techniques he used. I must get out of this. And the inspiration he derived from the samana, the calmness, the serenity. I must achieve this. This is the way. That inspired him to live. That is what that triggered him to want to live and seek and to go forth. So he was very aware of these things and he used all of these things. We can very comfortably in Sri Lanka and other traditional Buddhist countries very readily and comfortably bring it into fruition. We can introduce them in many ways. As I said, I've only done a little bit, and my mission actually is to encourage others. I'm not an educationist, as I want to repeat over and over again. If I can come with this kind of materials, I'm sure those who are very learned, very talented, very skillful educationists, they should be able to come up with similar books. And over a period of time, we will be able to have a pool of books. From here, I went on to the other book, which is called My First Word Book. Here again, I endeavored to introduce the Buddhist pedagogy of Pariyati, Patipatti, and Vatveda, and in English terms, cognitive affective learning. The child here is able now to read. It's beyond after the alphabet, and of course, this is my parents. I owe it to them. They were the Pubba Acharyas, and that is why I am able to speak to you in the way I'm speaking today. And I thought I'll also share some guidelines with parents. Here in this book, what I did was I introduced sentence structures that were completely different from what you get in the normal books which come from the West. Here the sentences create the value systems we were talking about earlier in our discussion. And why do they go to the altar? Again, a lot of discussion takes place, interaction among the students, and the teacher is facilitating. There are a lot of vocabulary that the child is able to develop through these lessons, which are holistic and which are able to bring about that value systems we are talking about. So here, instead of just A with some other cognitive kind of,
And I also see that you have brought out Buddhist names like Amita, Amila in this book. It's very
What is happening is that, these words have become foreign to us because we don't use it. When I introduce these Buddhist names, that becomes vocabulary. When you say Ananda, then they'll know what is Ananda, the meaning of Ananda. It becomes part of the vocabulary. In fact, I've written another book called Buddhist Names and Significance of the Usage. And I also bring about the practice of naming the child. So here, again, action learning. And a lot of activities, and the sentence structures and subject of the sentences are emphasizing those value systems that should be inculcated in a child. Now, if he's talking and he's learning, he's practicing, he's doing in the class, he's doing at home, he is also in his relationship with his other peers, having this very clearly demonstrated, you will expect a generation of wonderful children. A generation. And that should be our goal, that should be our aim. Bring about a generation of children who would know how to live with each other, who will respect nature, who would develop a liking, a fondness for plants and animals. That is our culture. We are in a position to contribute to the whole world because today they have this problem of climate change and environmental degradation. Whereas from small, We are taught to respect and honor nature. That is what the Buddha did. That is what Prince Siddhartha did. So by taking him as an example, by practicing in the class and doing all those exercises, there are a lot of exercises I bring in, action oriented, less and less uncognitive. In fact, cognitive should take less and less time in terms of curriculum as the year goes on. In the beginning stages, if you draw a graph, for example, X and Y, maybe you will have to have more cognitive in the initial stages. But as you go on, the cognitive should be less, the affective and psychomotor should be more. Then the child benefits. The child is learning more and internalizing everything. Then there's no worries, because the child becomes what you taught, not just knowing what you taught.
Well, sir, thank you so much, because that is exactly what we and what the society expects from a truly educated person. And as we all know, it is always said, it is always great to light up at least one lamp without cursing the prevailing darkness. Now that's what we have been up to. If you have learned something from today's program and the previous program, you have fulfilled our intention. So while thanking Dato Dr. Ananda Kumarasiri for inspiring us today and inspiring us on this topic, so that you